Welcome to the channel. My name's Simon, and together with my wife Kathy and our two Yorkshire Terriers, Coco and Wally, we live permanently on board our Narrowboat, cruising the canals of England and Wales. This morning we're on the New Junction Canal. We're going to move down onto the Aire and Calder and head for Goole. We're going to Goole Marina to fill up with diesel. We need approximately 100 litres. And also restock on our gas. This boat has two gas cylinders, two 13 kg Cali gas, and the one's empty. It's always best practice to keep both of them full or thereabouts. As we know from experience, running out of gas is a bit painful when it's what you cook with. And probably stop for a very nice breakfast at the cafe at the marina and say hello to some friends. It's a misty start this morning. Shortly we'll walk the dogs. Also anticipating the possibility that one of the big barges might come through this morning. Normally they'll pass by here somewhere around about 8 o'clock. At the moment, very quiet and peaceful. Birds singing. Mist hanging around. Occasional car across the lift bridge behind us. Okay, we cast off and away we go. Wally in his normal spot as navigator, sitting on top of his hot water bottle, all bundled up. This dog loves travelling on the roof. In fact, you can barely contain him. If you leave him inside, he goes berserk and barks and performs on the roof. As long as it's not raining, he's quite happy. The only thing that seems to upset him a little bit is the rain. Even if you put an umbrella over him, which we've got, especially for his basket. Don't know whether it's the sound of the rain on the umbrella he doesn't like, I'm not sure. Anyway, we're heading down here. We have a short aqueduct ahead of us before we turn to the right onto the Aire and Calder. It's about a 2 hour 15-minute trip. Sadly, once we get onto the sort of last stretch towards Goole, it's dead straight. Absolute boring sailing. Could almost do it eyes closed. Mooring behind us, which we've just left, is called Sykehouse, and it's just before the bridge. But there are some moorings there which are time limited in summer, but the normal 2 weeks in winter. Up ahead is the Went End Aqueduct. It feeds this canal, New Junction, over the Went River and some drainage. Shortly after that we turn right onto the Aire and Calder. Yeah, canal's narrow like this, you keep a close eye out for other boats coming towards you. And the boat up to cruising speed. Now the engine's warmed up. 1500 Yanmar 4-cylinder diesel. Converted to be water cooled, and a skin tank, so it doesn't use fresh water cooling. Circulates water through a tank which is on the side of the hull, and transfer the heat into the canal from the hull. Extremely reliable engines. Serviced it myself. 250 hours is oil change and oil filter, gearbox oil. And then every 750 hours I do a full oil, air filter, diesel filter, air filter, and again gearbox oil. A little bit of love for the engine, it's going to run forever. quite a few walking trails around the canals. Some of them you can do full circuits on. This time of year, a lot of the towpaths are very, very muddy, and some of the public paths lead through fields and things, so Wellington boots, or gum boots as we know them, are a popular footwear, as uncomfortable as they are to walk in. Well, I think it's something you get used to after you've spent a few years here. We do try and moor up in winter where there's not too much mud, because our dogs have both got low chassis, quite close to the ground, and certainly Coco absolutely hates mud and wet grass. She tiptoes around like a real dainty thing. Wally, he doesn't care. He'll just walk through puddles, slosh around, hasn't got a problem. But keeping them clean on the confined space of a narrowboat is also challenging. So we do try and stay off the muddy footpaths. We're going over the aqueduct now. We've got drainage on both sides and the Went River. And ahead is the water reservoir, which is fed off the Erin Calder. There is a yacht club. We quite often see dinghies and things racing around there, especially when there's good winds. And it seems quite popular. On the right hand side is some moorings, which are great in summer, but at this time of year tend to be a bit muddy, but we do use them as a stop off point on the way to Goole. Goole is about a 2 hour 15-minute trip from here, and once we go round the final bend onto the main straight, so to speak, it's extremely boring, because it's about an hour and a half of dead straight canal. On the left there is a silt dump type thing. This is where when they dredge the bottom of the canals, which they do occasionally because of the silt build up, the silt is pumped into there to allow the water to drain out. So a bit like a slimes dam or a settling dam on a mine. Water drains through. Several of these scattered around the canals. Okay, so here we come up to the junction. Turn right to Goole, and left you head towards Nottingley, Leeds. You can carry on onto the Erin Calder and Hebble, and that will take you onto the Huddersfield, Rochdale. So lots of trails from here. We have previously spent quite a long time to the left. We have done the Erin Calder all the way. We have done the Calder and Hebble all the way. We have done the Huddersfield Narrow, including Standish Tunnel. So we're now officially on the Erin Calder. It's very misty. In fact, I think the mist might even be getting heavier. We are travelling with our night nav lights on. It's probably a little bit of overkill, but it's Still nice for somebody to see me when they're coming from the front. Don't have a very large front profile, these boats. This is the water reservoir that feeds off this canal. It's quite big. Down at the very end in the mist and gloom, yacht club. Narrowboats are not allowed in, or no boats other than sailing boats are allowed into the reservoir. Quite a lot of bird life, very popular spot for fishermen. I think there's one just next to the swan there in the trees. They camouflage themselves very well, the fishermen. There's a little encampment there. Swans come to say hello. Probably doesn't make a man too happy. The Erin Calder was built in the 1700s, mainly to transport coal from the Yorkshire coalfields to Leeds and onwards, and moved raw wool, which is why there are so many spinning mills further up on the Leeds and Liverpool Canal. Goole is actually Yorkshire's primary port. It's an inland port, so obviously there's some restriction on the side of the ships that come in there, but it's quite busy. This section of the canal in most of the Yorkshire areas went into decline when they started closing down coal mines, as they reduced the number of coal-fired power stations. So obviously the demand for coal became less and less. Environmental factors came into it, and most of the collieries were closed. A lot of the power stations, I think, were converted to gas, although Yorkshire's also got huge wind turbine farms. One of the biggest can be seen from the Stainforth and Keadby Canal down by Keadby. There are hundreds of these big wind turbines. Benefit of Yorkshire being so flat and windy obviously means that wind turbines are an economical way of producing power. So as the industrial landscape changed and the demand for coal faded away, and the manufacture of a lot of goods went out of country, canals became more and more a leisure destination than business. As well as these two barges here on the Erin Calder, or this section of the Erin Calder, there's another, at least two running sand from Stanley Ferry through down onto the river briefly, it would be the River Aire, and up to Lemonroyd, where they've reopened a section of an old petroleum storage yard. Excited fella, that one. Bird wildlife is fairly prolific. Ducks, swans, geese. Although luckily up here the geese are not too prolific. Further south there are thousands of them. And well, they might look nice, I suppose. They only but make a mess, and they are so noisy. More up in what you believe is a lovely quiet meadow or something along the side of the canal, the next moment several hundred of these beasts arrive, and it's raucous, really raucous. A lot of cormorants in this area. See them dive for fish, and then you wonder if they're ever going to come back out, and they pop up a couple of hundred meters away. Steel bridge ahead, sort of a country road that feeds over it. Narrows up quite a bit, so obviously the big 600-ton barges have to pass through there very, very cautiously. The reason for narrowing bridges always is and always will be is to reduce the cost of the bridge. It costs far less to span a short distance than it does to put up a huge bridge the same width as the canal. Even on the narrow canals, the bridges just then become extremely narrow, with only the width for a narrowboat to get through. Trying to give the signal to have tea and biscuits, but I've been told it's too early. We have tea and biscuits 10 o'clock. That's the rule. While you're having a quick look around, you heard voices. Nice house on the side here. And the boat on the left, this was moored behind us yesterday. A couple of their dog that we see quite often and talk to. You can actually see the trees slowly turning green as the leaves come out of the buds. Although trees in a lot of these areas are actually green with moss. Through the winter, everything tends to turn green, including the boat. And certainly your canvas on your canopies does. Even if you seal them, they seem to still attract it. So your first job in spring is to wash them off and clean the boat off with a high pressure cleaner. A lot of pigeons flying around here. Once we're through this section, which is a sort of S-bends, we go to the left here, and a little bit further down we go to the right, and then the boring section starts. It's so straight you can almost see the end of it, even though it's quite a few kilometers down. because visibility is fairly restricted, you actually can't see any of the wind turbines. There are several around here, but hidden in the mist. You see signs on the water that the breeze is getting up a little bit. Currently the temperature is about 8 degrees. The wind will probably bring that down 1 or 2 degrees. That's Celsius. Thank you for joining us on our adventures. Please subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Till next time, be safe.